Hey guys, it's Meg. I apologize ahead of time if you can hear my neighbor mowing. I sat down to make the video and that's when he decided it was a good time to. In his defense, it's been raining quite a bit, and so this is probably his only chance to get the lawn mowed. So I wanted to do a May wrap up and then a June possible TBR. So June is going to be a very busy month, both for just my life and then also for reading. And I have a lot of events that I've kind of planned ahead, but then there's also a lot of other books that are outside of those events that I kind of want to get to, so we'll see. I usually only average like between 3 and 8 books a month, so yeah, and I have a lot more than 8 books on my TBR hopeful list. Since I'm doing Book Trek and June on the Range, a lot of those books are luckily fairly thin books because Westerns aren't typically very big books, and a lot of the Star Trek novels aren't typically very big. So maybe I'll get lucky and I'll be able to get a lot of reading done this month. We'll see. But anyway, let's start with the wrap up for May. So I read 5 books in May. So there wasn't really like a really horrible one that I read in May. I have like 3 that got only 3 stars and then 2 that I gave 5 stars to. So what I would consider the worst of the 3 that got 3 stars would be Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. It had a lot of potential. I was really excited to read it when I saw the premise and then the name of the main character, hero protagonist. That made me chuckle, and I was like, oh, this has got to be a good book. And I think it had the potential to be a really great book, but I saw a meme that someone had posted online where it's like the back half of a horse, and it's drawn like really, really well, and then like over to the side is like a little kid's, like, it's like one of those things where you're supposed to like finish this drawing, and so like a professional artist has done one side and then you're supposed to finish it, and like a little kid has drawn like this stick figure horse that just looks awful. And it said over here, it said Neal Stephenson starts a novel, Neal Stephenson finishes a novel. It was just that felt pretty accurate to me. I was really intrigued by the kind of use of like linguistics and ancient like Mesopotamian, Babylonian like mythology and history even. He really had something going there that was like really going to be interesting, and then it just kind of towards the end turned into a stick figure drawing of itself, and the ending was just so unsatisfactory. It was just kind of, it was almost like Stevenson was like, you could tell that he was tired of writing the story, it seemed to me, and so he just kind of like, okay, this is it, the end, I'm done, I'm not picking it back up again. So yeah, the 2 main characters, YT, so it's YT, the letters, it's short for yours truly. She's this like 15-year-old girl, courier, and so she basically rides like a skateboard and delivers packages and stuff, but it's like an amped up skateboard that can go over any terrain, and like she has like a thing on her arm that she attaches to like cars, and like so that she can go even faster. And so I don't know, it was interesting. There were parts, like I said, that were like really interesting. Excuse me. But she was kind of a Mary Sue. Like, she was really, you know, every male character she came across was like, oh, like, you're such a looker, you're so hot, and like she's only 15, so that was a little weird. And then you know, she's the best courier, and then one of the like gang leaders takes a liking to her, not in a way, like that kind of way, even though all the other male characters do, but more like in like a grandfatherly way. And other than like her helping out a delivery for them this one time, there's no real reason excuse me, there's no real reason for him to be so attached to her, but it's YT, so he is. I don't know. There were just a lot of moments where I thought she can do no wrong. And unfortunately, Neal does the same thing with the hero protagonist guy. He's the best hacker in the world. He's the best sword fighter in the world. It's just, it didn't make it interesting. I never felt like either one of them was potentially going to fail in anything that they did. And I really need to look up who actually said this quote originally, but like I forget the quote, where it's, if you are going to introduce a I think it's if you're going to introduce a handgun or something like that in the first act, and you better use it by the third. And there's the bad guy, the antagonist, which towards the end you're kind of like, but is he really? Like, I don't know. So the antagonist has a nuclear warhead, and it's attached to sensors in his brain so that if he dies, you know, and other than using that as a potential threat of like why Hero just can't like off him just because, they don't use that. Like, he doesn't blow anything up, even though he tells YT that that's his dream, is to like nuke America. He doesn't nuke America. He doesn't they don't find a way to stop him from doing this thing. Like, he just, like, the ending just kind of like goes, and you're just like, okay. So like I said, had really good groundwork laid, really had the potential to be really good, and then Stevenson just kind of gave up on it. So that was Snow Crash for me. The next one that I would say was like the next worst, and Snow Crash was a library book, so I don't have it. So the next one that I would say was the not a bad book, but I didn't rate it like high, was Candide by Voltaire. It's a really, really tiny book. I guess it's touted as like his greatest work ever. It's like a satire of the philosophical idea that everything is the way that it should be in the world, and that's how it's supposed to be. There's no point in arguing it. You should be happy with what you have. And I was told that it was going to be hilarious, like laugh out loud funny. There are some like ha kind of moments, but it sounded a lot to me like in moments like it was like similar to like Monty Python or even like Blackadder like episode or skit, which I love those. But it never really got to the point where I was like, ha, that is so funny, that's so hilarious. So I don't know if maybe I'm just not academic enough to get it, to think it's that funny. But yeah, it was like a good read, but I only gave it 3 stars because I think I was expecting something like more out of it. I was expecting more hilarity. And there were some interesting moments where I was like, I was not prepared for that, but oh well. The French have a very interesting way of about them of humor, I guess. So I like British humor. I don't know that I necessarily like French humor. So the parts that I didn't like about it reminded me of the parts that I don't like about Don Quixote. So I don't know if maybe I just don't get it. I just don't get classic lit satire or something. I don't know. So the next 3-star was kind of an anthology of vampire lore. It's called A Clutch of Vampires by Raymond T. McNally. This was written, I believe, in the 70s, published in the 70s. Let me double check for you. Yeah, 74. So there's plenty of vampire lore that's happened since then, obviously. But this does a really, really good job of, I know quite a bit of vampire lore. I am by no means any kind of an expert or like, but I used to be like a vampire super fan. And so there were actually a lot of short stories or like ancient mythology kind of things in here that I had never read before and didn't know about. My favorite was The Living Dead by Robert Bloch. That one was my favorite story in here. Carmilla was pretty good. I mean, you can't knock Carmilla, really. I had never read it, so I was excited that it was in here. But a lot of the other kind of short stories or folklore, I guess, like folk stories, read just like, you know, a Grimm's fairy tale or something like that would. So they're not bad at all, but they're not like, I don't know, what's the word I'm trying to think of, impactful or like memorable, really. Sometimes after I read a story if like after I read like a few short stories in a row, I wouldn't like necessarily remember what had happened in like some of the previous ones. But The Living Dead was kind of a funny one that stuck out to me. So worth a read. Since it's a 3-star, it'll stick along on my shelves for a little bit, and then like in a year I'll revisit it and see if I still think that it deserves to stay there or if it's going to be donated. But I'm really happy that I have at least read it and read a few of the older myths and stuff that had to do, because like there's one that's like it's like an old I can't remember if it's Chinese or Japanese. It's Chinese. Yeah, a Chinese vampire, and then there's ones from like even like Greek lore. So it was interesting to go like that deep back into time and see how like the vampire mythos has really evolved since antiquity. I mean, they've been with us since way before Dracula, and that's just kind of fascinating. And seeing how some of even the oldest superstitions about them have trickled down and are still like ingrained in, like, you want to kill a vampire, you stick a stake through its heart and cut off its head and burn the body. Like there's like things that like they've always done, and that's like in the vampire lore now still. So that was really cool. The next two are my 5-star reads, and it's so hard to pick. I might need to start doing like a nonfiction list and a fiction list, because like it is so hard to pick between like these two of like which one's the best. But in the end I decided that 8 Bears, and it's a library book, and for the life of me I cannot remember, unfortunately, her name. She's a journalist. I will put her name here because I feel really awful that I don't remember. And I can't give credit where credit is due now, so I should have done my homework before I started the video. But 8 Bears goes through it's a nonfiction look at the 8 different bear species that are alive on our planet today, and how, compared to like pretty much all the other, like, you know, dogs, cats, there are a lot more dog species, a lot more cat species, and there's only 8 bear species left. And they're dwindling fast because of human impact. There are some that are starting to do a little bit better, but kind of because of that. So like the black bear in America their numbers aren't necessarily dwindling, but because their numbers are going up higher, and because of some of the laws that we have in place here in America, those animals get put down at an alarming rate for kind of silly reasons. So it was a really hard read. I cried several times, or I started to cry. So it was my like take to work book and read. And like during my break, and I had to stop taking it to work, and I had to take a different book because I would get teary-eyed in the break room and I'd have to put it away, and then I wouldn't have a book to read. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna read this one at home. It's so crazy how much we have messed up this planet for all the other life on it. I mean, including ourselves, but also like what we've done has impacted and what we continue to do. So like, we've known about climate change for decades, and we still just continue to be like, we're not really going to do anything about it. We're going to make some changes here and some changes here, but then we're going to backtrack on some changes here and backtrack on some changes over here. So you're just kind of like, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so we're not getting anywhere, like, or we're 1 step forward, 2 steps back, I feel sometimes. But it was really impactful, and it was really good and really easy read. I know sometimes nonfiction can be daunting for some people, but the author did such a good job of, she separates the bears by country first. So I think you go to like Asia first, and then the Americans are after. Oddly enough, she doesn't spend a whole lot of time on the European bears, but I think that might be because they're kind of technically very, very similar to the ones over here in America. But that was a note that I had about that. That was kind of odd that they weren't included, I guess. I don't know. But she travels all over the world for this book, and goes and sees the state of these bears, like whether they're doing well or not. And she goes to like India and Korea and all these different places, and then she comes back over to the US, and then she goes to like Colorado. She goes all the way up into the Arctic to see the polar bears and how they're doing. And so she really, really did her research. It is so well researched and so well written that, so like I said, even if you find like nonfiction daunting, I would really, really highly suggest this book. It's only about maybe like that thick, so it's not like a huge nonfiction book. And if you care even a little bit about bears, you will care a whole lot more after this. If you don't care about bears at all, you will definitely care after reading this book. The part that hit me the hardest, getting emotional now, is that my son might live in a world that doesn't have polar bears. Sorry, I did not think I was going to get emotional about that again. But they might all be dead by the time that he's a teenager or even my age. And that's scary. And you try to do things in your own life to like leave less of a carbon footprint, but it's not really the individual household that's really making all these problems for the bears or for the planet. Unfortunately, it's like a very small percentage, and it's the companies that are owned by some of the richest people on the planet. So it's not like they don't have the means to make these changes. So I'll warn you, if you're going to read this book, don't read it in public. If you're a big softie like me, don't read it in public. But yeah, so that one was 5 stars. 5 big flashing stars. Loved it. Yeah, sorry. I really didn't think I was going to be... Ooh, okay. So moving on, because I think I'm just going to keep crying if I don't move on from that book. My number 1 read was the other 5-star read, and it is Startide Rising by David Bren. This is the second book in his Uplift saga. I originally tried to read Bren a while, like years ago, when I tried to read The Postman, and I didn't like it. So I think I need to revisit it, because I think I was expecting it to be more like the movie, and it was definitely not. And so I need to give it another chance, because I really do love Bren's writing. I loved Sundiver, which is the novel right before this in the Uplift saga, and I loved this one. This one was, oh my god, so good. I loved it so much. This basically follows so this is like set way in the future, where humans have made contact with, all sorts of alien races across the galaxy, and so the premise of the world building is that there was once a race a long time ago that reached sentience and like was able to like travel the stars and everything, and they're the ones that kind of seeded the rest of the galaxy and uplifted all of these other races that wouldn't have actually been able to reach sentience alone, or so there's a history, kind of like a family tree, from like that race all the way down to all these other like different alien races. Well, the humans don't have that. There's no evidence. No one can figure out who actually came and uplifted the humans. And so the humans claim that they did it themselves. Like, there was never any help. We went from, nomadic, living out in caves and stuff in the prehistoric, to now we know how to space travel. So that's kind of a plot point that's kind of in the background of like the both stories. And so once there's a race on a planet that reaches that point, then they can uplift other races on their planet. So the humans first uplift chimpanzees. So there are chimpanzees that can talk like English to people, and can have jobs and everything, and just function in society the same way like a human would. And so then the second race that they are uplifting is dolphins. And so in this book, because the first book is like hundreds of years before this book. So in this book, it follows a crashed ship of a mostly dolphin and then human and then one chimpanzee crew. And they have discovered possibly a big time secret before they crashed on this planet. And every other alien race in the galaxy, well, not every single, but the baddies are converging on this planet to try to get them and get their information that they have. And so it's kind of a mystery as to why it's such a big deal that whatever they found on this ship is making all these people come at them. So, and then they kind of have to play like a cat and mouse game of, you know, staying away and staying like, so no one can find them on this planet, while the other people like up in outer space fight over them and like fight to see who comes down to like get the information and everything. But within that, there's all the inner workings of the characters from the ship, and you kind of have your protagonists and antagonists on the ship, because everyone has kind of a different idea of how they should deal with the whole fact that the entire galaxy is coming after them. So there are some people that want to stay true to the mission and be like, no, they can't have this. This is our information. We're getting this back to Earth. And then there are the other people that are like, okay, but I want to live. And I don't want to like just throw my life away for this information. But so it goes back and forth. I really, really liked the different characters and it's told from different POVs, sorry. And so you get chapters that are told from the human's perspective, you get chapters that are told from the dolphin's perspective, and I really enjoyed that. There was some criticism that I heard other people give that you can't tell the difference in the voice of the different characters, but I didn't feel like that. I did feel like you could switch over to the next chapter, and I knew who was speaking at that point. Candide, I might be pronouncing that wrong. The dolphin names are very strange. But Candide might be my absolute favorite character. The dolphin, he's like the dolphin captain of this ship. He was so interesting and so amazing. He goes through kind of a horrific accident and then comes out on the other side with seemingly kind of this like extra ability. Kind of like when people go blind and then they can hear better. Kind of that sort of idea, but it's different. So there's a really interesting kind of lore even behind like the dolphins, because they have, just like humans have prehistory, the dolphins have prehistory, and they have like a mythos of their own, like a mythology of their own, and then they have like their own philosophy that they follow. And so I don't know, it's so good, and the suspense and the tension and everything, especially towards the end, it was just like so rapid fire at the end. Like I finished the like third half of the book like so quickly. This is so good. So yeah, I am really excited to read the third one, which I believe is in my TBR for June. So yeah, so that's my May wrap up. So my June TBR, I'll try to go through this pretty quick, because I don't know how long this video is already. But I can't really talk too much about the books considering I haven't read them yet. So, there are several events that I already do on, the Litzy app. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's a book app, like a book social media app or whatever. And one of the girls on there does like a bingo board kind of thing, and it's called a book spin, and she chooses 2 numbers out of 25, because there's 25 spaces. Yeah, 25 spaces on a bingo board, and she chooses 2 of those to be the book spin and then the double spin, and then she puts those back in the little like jar and then draws all the numbers again to like populate the bingo card. And then you're supposed to try to read, you make a list of your, I'm not explaining this well at all. you make a list of the 25 books that you hope are on the bingo card. And then as you read those books off that list, then you get to mark off your own like little space on the bingo card. Everyone's list is different. You just have your own list and everything. I was never getting bingos because I never read enough books to like get them in order. So I don't do the bingo anymore, but I still do the book spin, double spin, like picks, and then I add those into my possible physical TBR choices, because I have like a bunch of books at home, and if I didn't narrow myself down to, okay, these are the ones you get to pick to read from, it would be so hard for me to choose my books. So now I have these different ways of kind of narrowing down so I can funnel books into this one shelf in my room, and that's the only shelf I'm allowed to pick off of. So my two for book spin, double spin were Running Man by Stephen King, which I am in love with my copy because it has Arnold Schwarzenegger on it. It's really looking forward to that. I love the movie. I love pretty much any Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. So looking forward to that one. And then Search the Sky by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. So this one I don't know a whole lot about. I haven't even really read the back recently. This is a book that I bought quite a bit of time ago. I don't remember. Because I always go off like just the cover interests me, and then after that I read the back, and then I find out if the back interests me, and then I buy the book. But this is 1954. So I might actually save this one for Rocket Summer, because I have a lot of old sci-fi from like the 60s, 70s, which 70s I've been told by Michael K. Vaughan doesn't count as classic sci-fi. So I might hold off on this one. This one might not be a June one because Rocket Summer doesn't start until July, so we'll see. So those are my two picks for that event that I do on Litsy. The other event that I do on Litsy is another person. It's called Roll 100. So you make a list of 100 books that you want to read, and then this person rolls dice like that you would use in like Magic the Gathering or D&D, and pairs of dice, and then whatever those dice add up to, she does it 3 times, so you have 3 different choices, and whatever those dice add up to, that's the number off your list that you pick to read. So one of them was My Antonia by Willa Cather. This is another one that I bought a while back, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I know it's considered a classic, and it's been on my shelf for ages, so hopefully I will get to it. And then David Brin, The Uplift War. So this will be the 3rd book in the Uplift saga. There are technically more books after this, but I think the first 3 are considered like a trilogy together. So I really hope I can get to this one, because I'm riding such a high off of Startide Rising, and so I really want to get to this. But I love this cover. It has the chimpanzees in the background. I don't really know who this is supposed to be. If that's, I'm assuming following the pattern that the other 2 had. I don't know how you can have a pattern after only 2 things, but Sundiver was like hundreds of years before Startide. I'm assuming Startide is going to be hundreds of years before this. I don't know, but we'll find out. And then the other one was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This one was kind of one of those Litsy made me buy it. I saw a bunch of people on Litsy talking about this and giving it big kudos and stuff like that. And I mean, honestly, any book that has library in the title, I will probably read. So that one is on there as well. So the other event, also from Litsy, I'm part of the classic sci-fi book club on there, and so I don't know if this hits Michael K. Vaughan's definition of what a sci-fi is. This was written in 1974, so I guess it's not technically a classic sci-fi. I'm being such an ass, I'm sorry. So the group chose to read The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Again, I don't know a whole lot about this. The group, we vote, but this time I did warn everyone that I wasn't sure if I'd be able to get to it, so I didn't actually vote or make you can make a recommendation and then everybody votes, and I didn't do either because I wasn't sure that I'd be able to get to it, because I have Book Trek and June on the Range, and I really want to focus more on those, which those are in a different video if you want to see my selections for those. And then it's June, so it's Pride Month. So one of my friends gave me this a while back, and I only borrowed it, so I really need to get it back to her. So I told her I would definitely try to read it this month. Queer Magic by Thomas Prower, or Tomas, maybe, because it's got a little over the A. LGBT spirituality and culture from around the world. My friend, my best friend, raved about this book and how good it was. So I really strongly want to try to get to this one this month because it's Pride Month. So hopefully. So then, yeah, those are all my extras. Everything else is hopefully going to be Westerns and my Star Trek things for the other events on here on YouTube, on BookTube. So yeah, have you read any of the books either on my May wrap-up or my June TBR? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Yeah, so... Oh, what was your favorite read of May? What are you looking forward to in June? Are you doing June on the Range or Book Trek? It's my first time doing either of those events, so I'm pretty excited. I don't know how far I'll get with any of these, with Book Trek or June on the Range. Like I said before, they're pretty small books, so hopefully I can get through them pretty easily and hopefully knock out quite a few. My goal is to read 100 books this year, and I think I've only read 20-ish, 22, something like that. So hopefully I can kind of cheat the system and read a bunch of these small books and get myself caught back up to where I need to be. One of the apps, I think it's Fable, that tells you how many books you need to read to like get caught up with your goal, and I think they were saying that I need to read 13 books a month for the rest of the year to catch up to my goals. Okay, well, that's probably not gonna happen then, but if I can at least do better than last year, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just competing against myself, so it's not, if I don't hit my goal, I don't get like upset about it or anything. It's just, that's kind of whatever, like, oh, okay, well, shoot for 100 again next year. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for coming and listening to me ramble on about books again. I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.